All right. We are live. Tonight we're going to talk about forgotten features on system.debug.
Let it ring.
I'm so glad all that stuff was not on the podcast.
All right.
All right.
So, welcome again. Level 11, system.debug. This is our 11th episode. Tonight we're going to be talking about some forgotten features. But first, we're going to cover some quick upcoming events. Next week is Texas Dreamin', May 11th and 12th in Austin, Texas. You can still register. If not online, you can at least do so at the door. They do have a special guest. Apex and Limits will be playing. Next Monday and Tuesday, if you're in the Atlanta area, there is the Lightning Tour, where there are going to be 2 days full of nothing but learning how to make Lightning components. And I'm pretty sure that that doesn't have a cost associated to it. So if you are able to look it up, register for it. It's here in Atlanta. Should be a really, really good event. Trailhead X coming up in next month, actually, now that it's May 1st, June 28th and 29th. You can still register, but their early bird has gone away, I believe. So it's still there. Okay, so early bird is still $4.99, but get out there. I'm not sure if they've announced who's going to be playing, if there is anybody that's playing or not yet, but should be a good time. It was a good time last year. There's going to be even more sessions than there were, so it's going to be a really, really good developer event. After that, Midwest Dreamin'. What's that?
Sorry, go ahead. I just said that would be so cool. I don't think I'm going to get to swing it this year, but that would be great.
Midwest Dreamin' again, August 10th and 11th. That's going to be coming up in Chicago, followed by Witness Success the days directly after that's happening. You can find all this information out, once again, sharonpix.com. Look for their blog. They've got a huge infographic on it, and we'll share the link once again, as we usually do, to that, so you can go ahead and follow all the events that are going to be coming up. Tonight, forgotten features. Did you ever wonder why you should use a visual workflow instead of a complex matrix of visualforce and Apex classes? Ever ask yourself, why should I use the process builder when I could do this with a trigger? We're going to try to put some of these internal debates to rest.
Internal debates.
Well, as a developer,
Are there any debates?
Because as a developer, you may sit there and you go, I know that this is a thing, but I could just program it. And
he's exactly right. There are.
They're not just internal. They're like internal debates.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. I argue with myself all the time whether or not do I want to see.
Oh, man.
Do I want to see if I can pull this off in Flow, or do I just want to take 20 minutes to write in a trigger? Right. So.
Speaking of C.
I can't see you,
Brian. We can't see you.
I can't see you at all.
You cannot see me.
Nope.
That is really interesting because I'm displaying you to you all. So I guess you're just gonna have to listen to me today.
Yeah. Now I see your icon.
Yeah, but when I switch it back, oh well.
That's okay. We'll work through it.
Yeah, we'll work through it.
You know what? Our people on iTunes will never know.
I think it's your fault because I'm actually watching the YouTube stream and I can see myself.
All right. Could you see all the stuff that Brian was showing us before?
Indeed, I could.
Huh. All right. Never mind. Our app is just messed up. Nah, you can turn it back around.
I think it's y'all.
Yeah,
it's not.
It definitely
it's
is.
not you. It's us.
How do you say the southern version of like us all?
Ewins.
Ewins? Us.
Ewins is y'all plus 3.
What? Us?
I'm sorry.
Us?
It's a Jeff Foxworthy thing. Ewins is y'all plus 3.
Yeah, who that is.
So
anyway,
speaking of, you said speaking of C, but that was seeing me. So before that, where were we?
Right.
Yes. Internal arguments with yourself. Yes.
Right, because you have a lot of different options as far as the Salesforce platform goes, whether you are an admin or developer, as to how you're going to approach a particular problem.
Yep.
And a lot of times with Salesforce, they have pre-built tools that can automate your entire business process through clicks, not code, as they put it. But we're not necessarily
do that.
Right.
That's what they aim for.
Right.
Really.
That's kind of like what they lean towards.
Yeah.
However, and we're not here to necessarily push you in one direction or the other. What we want to talk about more is how you can merge the two, because I think a lot of developers kind of get in this one track mindset where they're a developer, therefore they code.
You always code, yeah.
That's not always the case for every developer. There's obviously, developers like David Todd and some of the other developers here, who understand the platform more so than just the coding side of it.
Yeah.
Will tell you that
use what's available to you.
Right, exactly.
Always.
And that's exactly it. And I know, Ryan, as a consultant and a contractor, you've probably dealt more with this than the rest of us. Would you say?
Yeah. I always try to go clicks first. When Radial, my last company, had to close its doors, I went back to the company that I worked for previously to work with their Salesforce branch. And for the first 3 months, even though I have usually and historically been a hands-on keys developer, for the first 3 months, I did nothing but flows and process builders.
Jeez.
I mean, they were all, for the most part, pretty simple, with the exception of one client where we took their entire bill collection process. That was a combination of a whole bunch of different workflow rules. I don't think we actually had any code, but I helped them kind of re-architect that and then automate all of this process inside of the process builder. It was this huge image called the Zamboni, is what we called it, because when you zoomed way out, it looked like a Zamboni machine. It kind of had that outline, but we took a very complex process that, I probably could have cranked it out in code,
Yeah.
in a week's worth of time. Right. But they don't have a developer on staff. They have an admin. They have somebody who probably could be a developer if they took that kind of time, but they have also other duties. Right. And so they wanted me to come in and say, if you can avoid code, do it with code. Or do it without code. So I came in and I taught them how to use Flow, and we spent a couple of weeks together, just going over it and teaching them how to do it. And now they are fully capable to create their own flows and stuff that I would have normally done in code. We're just doing it in Flow. Now that's not a visual flow where the user interacts with the screen and then calls back and forth the flow. I'm personally not a fan of that, just because it's really hard to style. But the headless flow stuff, absolutely, replace my triggers, all of that.
Can't you throw visualforce pages inside of?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. That's one of the really cool things about visual workflow. And we got a really, really great firsthand demonstration of this. And if you allow me a small digression, last Friday at our developer user group, we had Rakesh Gupta, who is a 5-time author, and I believe this week or next week he's releasing his 6th book about Salesforce. And he is
it all developer stuff, or
it's kind of more on the workflow side. He has his own podcast, Automation Champion, or blog. It's a blog. It's Automation Champion.
Okay.
And he and Jennifer Lee also do stuff every Friday or every other Friday where they talk about stuff through a webinar about workflows and stuff.
I got you.
Yeah, the automation hour.
Right. And so we'd gotten a really cool firsthand look, and he'd done a small workshop for 2 hours where he was having he was giving people tasks to complete through workflows, creating a record, updating a record, different things like that.
Just do a thing using a workflow. Yeah.
But it was really neat how he had kind of shown us, you can do it with a visualforce page. And as we all, as developers would know, once you have a visualforce page, you've got access to Apex. Right. So
I'm surprised you didn't know that. Did you know that beforehand?
No, I mean, I knew it beforehand.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
It was really neat kind of seeing somebody who is, in my opinion, an expert on the matter work through it versus me getting up there and saying, so I've done this once or twice.
Yeah.
I have an idea of how it works.
Yeah.
But the point is that you can, to what you were saying, put visualforce pages in your visual workflow. Right. And style it up, and then actually have that kind of, and that's where the code can kind of become incorporated into something without you creating a visualforce page and Apex controller that is driving the entire process from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
Most of that's automated with a little bit of, coding flair.
Yeah. Because you can do, I'm not 100% sure about this, but most of the time when you have a tool that allows you to do very visually kind of things, and this goes all the way back to when I was a kid and I was playing with software called Click and Play. You make a game by clicking and dragging and doing different things. You always seem to have a bit more control though with the code, a bit I don't even know how you would say it. The depth of your control extends to another level.
Oh,
Usually.
Absolutely.
Not always the case, but yeah. And that's why I'll always look at the tools that I have available to me, but then I'll say, all right, which one of these can I use most efficiently and most effectively? So then I'll just deploy that. method.
And that's kind of what Ryan was saying, right, Ryan? Where you try to approach problems. If I'm correct as to what you were saying previously, you approach problems from a click perspective first. What can I do natively on the platform before I actually have to start injecting any sort of real code? And a lot of that comes because Apex has limits. How many classes you can have,
I've heard
how many characters total.
Don't they have like a band or something? Isn't there a band?
There's something
like that.
Yeah.
That. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, I totally understand throwing.
Sorry.
Ryan's like, murder everybody.
It's crazy. I think I've seen Apex and the Limits in concert more often than I've seen any other band.
Wouldn't doubt it.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Extraordinary or whatever. That's the word.
Outstanding.
Outstanding. Yeah, that's the word you say. Outstanding.
Yeah. No.
Does he send you guys comments? That show was outstanding.
Outstanding. Come to Texas Dream, and hopefully it'll be outstanding.
It will be outstanding, according to BJ. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, though, because especially with Salesforce, at least in my opinion, if you can not do something that may break Salesforce, I would prefer to do it. But I got into Salesforce, as we talked about a long time ago. I got into it from the code point. I didn't know there was anything else, on Salesforce. And I figured, like, as I went on being a developer, I was like, oh, triggers. Oh, process builder. Oh, this. Oh, that. So I learned about the tools later.
Yeah. See, and I haven't always been that way. When I first started on Salesforce, being the coder, I'd run right in and want to write code. And my boss kind of had to say, remember, this is a clicks before code environment, right? So see if you can figure out how to do it without jumping into the code right away. And it took me probably the better part of a year to actually get used to that and be like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense now. And once I started learning the it took like an afternoon, but started to learn the ins and outs of headless flow and everything like that. If I can do it in Flow, I'm absolutely going to do it in Flow. I avoid having to do the unit test coverage. That said, I still do the unit test to make sure that the outcome is what it's supposed to be doing, right?
So you're still So you're still doing unit tests, even though you don't have to.
Even though you don't have to, I am still more comfortable with having a unit test.
Gotcha.
That
makes sense.
It should actually be considered a functional test at that point, not necessarily a unit test, but it's still, it's nice to know. And I'll do things in there too, like being able to shut it off for testing if I had to, putting flags in there and say, read a custom setting to turn it off, etc.
So can you give me an example of when you would have used visualforce pages or anything like that inside of a flow that you've actually had to write code to supplement?
I've launched a flow via a visualforce page. I've never to this day yet embedded a visualforce page inside of a flow for anything. If I any visual flow that I've done, I just stuck with their standard little wizard that gives you that kind of ugly UI.
Yeah.
Because it's always been something really quick, like, hey, I want to give my salespeople a button. They fill in 3 or 4 different fields and move on and have all this magic happen, right? So I've done that before.
So you didn't have a real need for like serious styling for anything.
Yeah, I haven't had to do that yet. So I really can't speak to that, which is why when you said that, I'm like, oh, I'll have to try that sometime because I've never never done that.
Again, like same principles apply. Only when you really need it. Like if you can get away with just a button and you're good to go and you don't have to do any like crazy styling or write some style sheets for it or do anything else, why not?
Well, and Salesforce is constantly coming out with new updated pieces to their platform that are making the automation process that much easier for everybody on the platform. But
again, that's the point.
Right. And that's what's great. So I can see where, a lot of times there is no need for a small shop to have a, on-staff developer. Now, you've messed with Process Builder, you said previously, correct?
Yeah.
And you've seen where you would inject invocable methods and stuff like that, but you've never, if I'm correct, you haven't done one yet, correct?
I haven't done an invocable method yet, but I know you have, right?
Yes, and my use case was mainly actually from a developer forum, which is the first use case I actually had from an invocable method. And it was because up until that point, I'd seen it at Dreamforce 15, Dreamforce 16, 2015 Dreamforce.
Yeah.
Either way,
whatever it
that's the
was.
first time I'd seen it, and I had realized at the time that this could be a really, really, really useful tool if you could discover a use case for it.
Yeah.
But more than likely, you're not going to. And it wasn't until one day I was on the developer forum, and a young person had said that, well, you never know.
Young
Screen
person.
names are screen names. But anyway, somebody had asked about being able to run a trigger for an account object, but they only wanted it to fire off when an opportunity, a lead, or a contact were updated associated to that account. Or not lead, it was like a custom object, but either the custom object, an opportunity, or a contact were updated. It had to check all three of, or any records associated to the account.
All three of them.
Yeah, all three of them, and then update the account based on that. And she or he didn't know if they should be doing this via multiple triggers, if the trigger should be on the account or what have you. And that was the first time that I realized this might actually be a fantastic use case for an invocable method, mainly because you don't know where it was going to stop with how many child objects she was going to be trying to launch this from and change it from. So this way you could create a separate process for each one of those sub objects. And then just have the one invocable method that you pass a list of, it's like a list of strings of IDs, right? And you just dump it in there, and then it automatically ran all the logic. So that was like a really powerful use case for me, because it was the first time it really struck home that this is a viable tool, and this is a very good option
for a good place to use it.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have to dig up a picture of that Zamboni so you can see just how complex you can actually get with the headless flows and things like that. And another thing I really liked about it is, I use a method when I'm writing my flows where I'm actually naming things in the boxes like in plain English. I don't use like shorthand or anything. So like, is the account of type blah blah blah, and then in yes and no's I actually say yes it is this, no it is that, so that by the time you're done and you leave that site, they actually, if they wanted to, had a fully documented procedure that's happening right there. A new admin would come in, look at that flow, be able to read it just like a flow chart and know, oh, these are all the things that are happening when XYZ happens here and XYZ happens here, and they know the whole chain right there. It's like a self-documenting process. They say good code documents itself, and there's a bit of truth to that. I still argue that point, but but
I think most people are
really
against that.
Well, into your Zamboni, I know Rakesh, somebody had actually asked Rakesh what the biggest flow or workflow, the visual for that he had created, and I'm pretty sure he had said that he doesn't go past 10 screens or 10 different options. However, he said that he has known quite a few people who have 200 different steps.
That's huge. That's crazy. Yeah.
Workflow. And I mean, it's not like every user hits every single one of those steps. It's just that it spiders so much that
it's probably got a huge decision tree.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's too long of a process.
But when you think of these huge companies with
no, I understand what you're saying.
QuickBooks, I mean, there is so much as far as like accounting and everything else. Like, I can't imagine having to set that up.
It's just I'm not even talking about the setup part. I'm talking about coming at it as, hey, I just started working here. And then they're like, oh, hey, use this to do your thing, whatever, your task may be. Like, hey, you got to use this to do your accounting stuff, and then they just hand you this massive flow, and you're like,
but that's what's great about the flows, is that it's a step-by-step, right?
No, I get that.
To the user,
saying, like,
and I get what you're saying. Yeah,
there are some times, like, when you think about a flow, right? Oh yeah, it seems very like obvious and everything is like very structured, right? This, like, real life flows aren't like that. Things loop back around and do this and do that, and like there are trees that you'll never even get to, like certain nodes that you'll never even see, but you need like to do a piece that's in there somewhere, and you're like, how do I get down there to that thing? Like you have to set an option or whatever. I need to set this one thing. Well, if you don't do the thing and then the other thing and the thing before that and the thing before that and the thing before that, you'll never get to that piece,
Yeah, I think there's a law of diminishing returns and something like that. So if it starts to get that crazy, you might be better off investing that time in writing a good finite state machine or something to smarten up your process to know where it needs to go from here based on the information that's been given so far and things. Because yeah, I mean, plus, I mean, the big drawback for me is that flow builder is still in Flash and it's kind of clunky.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, when your screen really starts, I'm very particular, and I don't like my lines to like be hidden by boxes and things. Although when it gets really crazy, you kind of can't avoid it. But I mean, and that's a really stupid thing to nitpick on, I realize, but it's like the screen can start to get really cluttered. However, I still feel that there are days, depending on who wrote the code and who wrote the flow, etc., that I would probably rather read that flow chart than try to read somebody else's code.
Yeah, depending, like you said, depending on who wrote it. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Because there are times when you're like, what is this person doing? They name stuff, crazy stuff like, function microphone. You're like,
var
what does that do?
What? Yeah, why? Why?
Yeah.
What does this actually do? Is this record stuff? Like, what does this actually do? Oh no, just prints out a bunch of stuff into the debug. What? Yeah, it's like it's always something random.
You know,
like,
he says this, but the other day I had a problem. He comes into my office. The first thing he does is go, watch, var poop 10. Okay, now we're gonna log this
because it was in the console
and multiply it by 10, and we're just gonna keep logging poop to see where our problem is.
Well, because you were inside. Here's the thing. Just so people don't think I'm completely dumb. What happened was, so he's inside of this. He's like, oh, I need to figure out like why this stuff isn't updating, because he's like all pissy about, oh, I can't figure this out. I was like, okay. So I go in his office and I'm like, let's see your code. So he's got an asynchronous request that's happening. So immediately in my head I said, okay, where are you setting this? Oh, inside of the request. Okay, so he makes the request. So I said, hey, just set a variable here, make it 10. Then inside the request, multiply it by 10. And then outside of the request, after the request is done or the request has been made, essentially, console log it and see like where we're at. So it's like 10, 10, 100. And I was like, that's your problem. It's calling afterwards. Right. So because it should have been 10, 100, 10, but it wasn't. It was 10, 10, 100. So his asynchronous call obviously was coming back way after. He's like, where's all my stuff? I can't find any of my stuff. It's not displaying. And I was just like, just fix it there. Just do that.
Well, what's funny is that today I had to push into Git. And one of the things I do before I push is I just kind of do a global search for console.log. So I can go back and
see if I found console.log poop.
Yeah, I found a whole bunch of those. And I was like, oh, I totally would have forgotten about this. Like, deleted the variable and everything.
That would have been fun.
They wouldn't have seen the code unless they went through the browser console and like actually looked for it, and it would take them a while to find that. But
no doubt,
still,
it's funny you say that about that whole asynchronous, like being able to log that. Like what I've done in the past is I've actually created a private chatter group and logged to that. So when it returns, it just sends a post to a chatter group.
Really?
And then you just go look at the chatter group and see. Well, I mean, it's not going to work if you spend like if you put thousands of requests in there, but I've had to do that before. So I had a client that they just queued up an insane amount of requests, and they needed the user to keep going. So we would just fish stuff in back. And then the problem is the user has then since gone, and they don't know that an error or something happened, but the admin still wants to know. So sure enough, we would just...
I got you. So it logs the errors to the chatter group so that the admins can see. I get it.
So they had a running total at the end of the night, so they could see, you know, how many of the account updates failed today or whatever. So
that'd be a rough, like, depending on how many account updates you have. And
that was rough.
Yeah,
we were integrating with a really horrible mom and pop. This is not really a web service kind of web service. So yeah, that was fun. But
web service.
Yeah.
So as far as like the forgotten tools, though, like really it all comes down to the point that there is a lot of process automation available on the platform. And as a developer, it's good that you know Apex. It's good that you know visualforce, JavaScript, and all the tools that are meant for developers. You know, if you're working in Aura for Lightning and everything like that. But if you really want to be a great developer on the platform, you can't forget about these forgotten features for developers. You know, you need to be able to go in, mess around, do the trailhead trails, and kind of do slightly small deep dives into it to figure out where you could be adjusting your org's.
Yeah, you can jump into these little things as you're essentially as you're growing as a developer. You know what I'm saying? Like you can, and that's how I did it. Like I said, I started with the code, but then I realized, oh, there's all these other little avenues that I can travel, and they're fairly small for the most part when compared to like code, because you can do all the crazy things with code, and then there's these little avenues you can travel down. But yeah, like you can just pick and choose. You can say, what do I want to do today, and can I do it in anything but code?
Well, right,
You
and
know?
especially
With the
once again
trailheads.
with the limits.
Yeah.
You know, you need to avoid hitting those, and it may seem like, oh, you know, they allow you to have so much code. There's no way you're going to eat up.
You always, you'll hit them every single time.
But we have. I know a lot of ISVs probably do, and then they spend a lot of time revamping what they've got, trying to ditch old classes and other things in order to keep the package minimal.
That's gonna mess you up. Yep.
You know, and
that's gonna mess you up big time.
If you are working in your own org and you can actually eliminate even 10% of your code by going through automated processes, click to create, stuff like that, you're just going to be that much bigger of an asset. To your employer.
Yeah, I agree. You got to have all the tools in your belt, right? You don't want to fix everything with a hammer. And I've actually come to really like trying to look at those tools first before I dig into code.
Well, and that's what kind of like starts your trek from being a developer to being a technical architect. You know, that's where that big changeover sort of happens from your dev admin. You know, you go from being a developer to a dev admin, or an admin to a developer, but you know, then you get into that technical architect aspect of it, where you know the ins and outs of everything on the platform. You are the go-to person for, you know, having the right answer about
job security.
Job security, what tool to use. You know, that's
the good thing about that too is on the Salesforce platform is there's like a big surge, I guess you would say, in Salesforce right now, or at least that's what it feels like to me. You guys may have been part of this, I guess, already and seen it or felt it, I guess. But to me, it seems like there's a big kind of something big is happening in Salesforce right now, and a lot of people are trying to jump on the train. So again, job security. Now all of a sudden there was 10,000, now there's 40,000 people gunning for your job, you know, or similar jobs. So there's that too. You got to think about that.
Yeah, and for me, I think from the consulting side of things, at the end of the day, when I leave, I don't want them to necessarily have to call me back. I mean, yeah, it takes money out of my pocket, but I've moved on, they moved on, whatever. If they have to keep coming back to me to fix stuff, that means either the code that I wrote is messy and they can't figure it out, or they don't have people on staff to do it. But I mean, the goal at the end of the day, at least for me, is to make sure they don't need me anymore. And so if they don't have a developer on staff, if I have to do it in code, I make sure that I clear it with everybody. I'm like, okay, this is going to be code. You're going to need a developer to maintain it, whatever. But you know, outside of that, it's clicks as much as freaking possible for me.
So if you have an opinion, if you've had a project that you've worked on in the past where you've actually had to incorporate Apex Visualforce pages in your visual workflows, or how you've incorporated invocable methods into your process builders, or any other time where code has actually kind of been a really good augment for a automated process builder, we'd love to hear about it. Comment below. Remember to like and subscribe as well. You can follow us all on YouTube, Twitter, and YouTube. But you can follow us all on Twitter.
The infamous RJ.
The infamous RJ, at Life with Ryan, and US Brian 28, all on Twitter.
And MAB Hubs.
MAB Hubs.
MAB Hubs.
MAB Hubs.
Our next episode.
Ryan, I think you should.
Our next episode is going to be May 15th. It's going to be starting a startup. That date might change, though, depending on a small hiccup. We're not sure. We've got to check it out. However, we did have to push back, obviously, the starting a startup that we had promised you tonight until our next episode because of, well, real life. Real life happened, and
I guess so.
I
don't know if it was real life. I'm not going to blame it on real life. I'm going to blame it on Chris and Larkin.
Okay.
That's right. Chris and
Oh, he called him out, man.
guys.
No, they're not.
Don't
gonna come on
don't
the
even.
show.
Don't
You guys are
even.
mean. You guys are mean. You're making BJ cry.
I promise I saw my way going.
Such an ugly crier too. It just.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's disgusting.
Is my beard mascara running?
Your beard mascara?
That's a thing.
That's what I need
This-
because I
this
just
is
can't
why
get it to
they're not
grow
on.
here.
This is why they're not on the show. I
It-
tried to get them to wear beard mascara.
Wait,
We don't even have
whoa.
beards.
In a brief call out shout out to our last episode, do these two gentlemen have beards as well?
Nope.
Okay, see, because we
do not.
got called
They're
and like,
baby-faced men.
do you have to have a beard in
I
order
know,
to
and
be
then
on
I
the
said
show?
I said it, and then I immediately regretted it because I'd singled out so many people. Like I felt absolutely awful. So
Who'd you single out?
like anybody without a beard,
Who cares?
I felt bad.
They're fine.
I felt
They're okay.
honestly guilty that I said it.
Yeah, that's funny though. I this is all I got right here, man. I didn't know if goatee counted.
Outstanding. God, I wish I could watch. I'm gonna watch this episode several times to watch you slap yourself.
It's like,
There's
there's
oh man,
RJ's new
It's-
meme.
It's gonna be an animated GIF
it's a whack.
over and over and over and over.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that as my my Facebook GIF.
All right.
It's just gonna be you whack, just whack, whack, whack.
So thanks again, everybody who joined us this evening. Remember, like and subscribe and follow us on Twitter. We really appreciate everybody.
Possibly
who
next
is-
time we'll do startup stuff.
Possibly.
Chris
Yeah,
Larkin.
we'll see.
In the
Call 'em out,
meantime,
man.
give us some ideas just in case we don't.
Oh yeah, we're always open for suggestions.
We're out of ideas.
Definitely not out of
We're not
ideas,
out of
but we want to
ideas.
know what you want to hear about.
Yeah, we would like that. That'd be
Yeah.
nice.
That would help. Otherwise, we're just talking about what we want to hear about.
Fair enough. I'll take it.
All right,
Okay.
everyone. You have a great night. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.